interested in Shiite Islam. I'm working on a project about authority and changing or negotiating authority in contemporary Shiite thought and practice. So it's about different types of religious authority in contemporary Shiism. And I'm personally writing about charismatic religious authority, mahdas and prayer leaders and this kind of charismatic Hayati form of Shiism in Iran. Or I'm supposed to write about that. I find myself doing a lot of other things. So we can just take it. Musa, can you continue?
Yes, I'm Musa Sayed. I'm a researcher, Doctor of Private International Law, so I'm a lawyer at the Uppsala University. And I've mainly dealt with Swedish law, but also Islamic law, in most parts Sunni Islamic law. My latest research project is a comparison of Sunni and Shia inheritance systems. So family law systems in the different branches of Islam. So that's my relation to this seminar.
Hi, my name is Mel Zachrisson and I study globalization history at the University of Stockholm. I was going to become a teacher of history, but then I switched. I'm going to switch into studying more academic history. I'm a very big fan of, well, many different types of cultures, so I'm just here to learn more about other cultures and understanding them and trying to fit them into the bigger, greater pattern of globalization.
My name is Raman Mustafa. I'm a graduate from Stockholm University and I'm planning on continuing on studying a master's degree in political science and international relations.
My name is Max Hoffman. I'm a coordinator for contact with the Muslim communities at the State Commission for State Support to Faith Communities. Okay, that's maybe too long. Yeah. And I studied history of religion and Arabic.
siavosh, we will end with you and then you can start. So we continue with Ali now. Ali, introduce yourself please.
I'm Ali and I'm a journalist and actor.
I'm Bitte Hammargren, I'm a journalist. I used to be a Middle East correspondent of Svenska Dagbladet for many years. I've traveled to Iran many times, or comparatively many times. I'm nowadays also a lecturer and a writer, and I just recently published this book on the Arabic monarchies on the Arabian Peninsula. It's now in paperback. The hardcover was sold out. So.
My name is Amir Haji Yousefi. I'm a professor of international relations, and now I'm here as director for Iran's Cultural Center in Stockholm.
I'll just briefly say something, since for some of you this is the first time at this seminar. The idea with the open seminar for Shiite Studies is just to have some place where people interested in Shiite history and culture and traditions can come and discuss and present and talk about Shiism. And it's an open seminar, so the idea is also to bring in people who are intellectual and knowledgeable in this field, but who are outside of the Swedish academic system. As you know, we have lots of academics in this country who are not a part, who we don't get to use in the academic system because they're outside of the university world. So this is an attempt to bring people in, all these Iranians and Iraqis and Pakistani intellectuals who are packed with knowledge, and for us to benefit from that a little bit. And the rules are, it's open for anyone, anyone who's interested. It's a non-confessional seminar. We have to keep an academic, non-confessional standard to discuss history from a non-confessional point of view. And I think it has been quite a few very interesting seminars so far. Okay, and today then it's our great honor that you, siavosh, have agreed to present some of your thoughts on the important element of Shia culture. So please introduce yourself and then you can start your presentation.
Okay. I'm siavosh naderi farsani. I've been a researcher at IICT in Iran, and I've been working in the field of philosophy of culture. And here I've established a research institute, and I'm to work on the field of peace from cultural perspective, of course. And this topic that I'm going to discuss today, as it's written here, some important elements of Shia culture. So the first question is, what is the methodology that I'm going to use to study, as far as I'm going to use the elements of culture? The methodology that one can use to decode the elements of any culture in general, and Shia culture in particular, can be under two approaches. The first approach, in fact, focus on decoding the ideas of the pioneers, the founders, and the developers of the worldview or the ideology. The second approach that one can use is the methodological approach that in fact tries to decode the cultural elements of the people at grassroots level. That is to say, the ordinary people, which are in fact the major parts of the dominant culture in a society. In fact, I'm not expected to decode the ideas of the founders of the religion, or those who have been pioneers, or the philosophers, or the theologues, let's say, of the religion, as is presented in the primary sources of the Shia culture. What is expected to decode the ideas of the people, how they think, as far as they are affected, they are influenced by Shia worldview. So there is two approaches. It should be clear at the beginning of the discussion. Yeah, as I said, the applied methodological approach here is the second one that I use, and if I go to another one. So, when we finish with when we choose our methodological study, then we should talk about the keywords in an operational, way. I mean, we should present an operational definition of the culture at first, because when we say the main elements of Shia culture, so there will be two questions: what is Shia and what is culture? And as I said, as far as the methodology is concerned, first I should talk about the culture. Why is it important that have a clear operational description and definition of culture in this approach of study? There are many definitions of culture. I conducted a research in Iran, and more than 100 definitions. When one is going to use one of them as the basis of his analysis, his cultural analysis, it's important to define clearly what kind of elements that culture can talk about or cover. The definition that the definition that is given here, I say, I define culture as a set of rules, beliefs, values, presuppositions, attitudes, information sources and channels, symbols, customs, habits, institutions, and here I cannot see, here I call it, and models of behavior, which are in fact manifested in various cognitive and concrete realities such as language, art, music, literature, and recreation, education, policy, power, communication, lifestyle, economy, and crafts and industries, handcrafts. By this definition, we have two presuppositions here, again, in this study. That, first of all, this culture that we are going to talk about has some layers. And as far as the first layer, which is worldview, as the heart of this culture is concerned, we should talk about the Shi'a worldview elements as well. The culture, as I've written here, can be discussed in three layers. First, the worldview, the dominant worldview. The second, the cognitive system of the culture. And the third, the concrete or material manifestations of that cognitive system, and of course the control beliefs of the dominant worldview. So far, we have a definition of culture and about three layers of the related culture. One thing that should be considered here is that the culture at the deepest structure is very abstract, and the more one moves from the deepest structure to the surface structure, the more the elements will be material and concrete. So, at worldview and cognitive systems, we can talk about attitudes, control beliefs, theories, tendencies, but the more we come to the first layer, or let's say the surface layer, we'll have the concrete forms of culture. So there we may have some behaviors that people present their political behavior as far as is cultural oriented, or economic behavior which is affected by the culture, or educational goals that they have, or educational, let's say, policies that they take and in fact are affected by the deep beliefs that are located at the deepest structure of the culture, which I call worldview, and the second layer also that I call cognitive system. In some literature, the second layer is introduced as the ideological level. However, I use cognitive level instead, as far as I believe there is a difference between religion and culture. Culture is more eclectic and open to the ideas. And these three layers, if you see here, you have the number 8, it is the elements of culture.
Oh, okay, this one.
Yeah. If you see, at the surface we have food, clothes, and lifestyle. This is some elements that are material, in fact. But the more you go to the down, at the deep, you will have the more abstract ideas and beliefs. So instead I could have another, let's say, graphic presentation for that, like onion, but I was not good at doing that. So I list it. And this list includes many elements of the culture. Maybe there are some elements that are not included here. However, the important message of this list is that we have, let's say, moving from the more abstract at the deep structure of the culture and going to the surface, which are the more concrete and material elements. These are very important because when we go to study Shia culture, we should know about these elements, and when we talk about the concrete elements, and we say we are in the third level, third layer or second layer, and their interplay. So this is like formula that these presuppositions are very important. They are the basis for analysis. Okay, now we are going to talk about in the 9, we are going to talk about the worldview. Before I talk about the elements of the worldview in general, one can present worldview as the, let's say, the window through which man can see the world. Just imagine we are in this room. Of course, I know everybody knows about the worldview, but as far as this study and this methodological approach is concerned, I give an operational within the framework of this study. Just imagine you are in this house, in this room, and there are 4 windows. There are some realities out of this building, and you can choose among one of these windows. The way that you define reality and what you see in fact as reality may be quite different from another window. So the importance of worldviews in culture should be taken into consideration. And of course, the competing worldviews in the society. When you talk about the culture in a society, you will have some worldviews that competing each other. They may be rivals. And even within a worldview, later we'll discuss, they'll have some paradigms that in fact are some seeds that have been affected by other cultures, other worldviews, which have been in fact dominant over other competing cultures. But they affect the related culture, and then the seed grows, and there will be a conflict, a cultural clash, let's say, or one can say dialogue. But as far as the culture and the worldviews are concerned, then we'll have the resistant behavior, the cultural resistance. And this is very important to be taken into consideration when we talk about peace process, when we talk about dialogue. It's not something in general. You can talk about every particular element in the cultures. Okay, any culture in general, and of course Shia culture in particular, so has a worldview. But the elements of the worldview, the window that we talk about, so the question is this window, what is the framework of this window, how this window is made? Are all the windows in the world, are they made in the same way, or there is a different way of making the windows? I say the plan for all the windows or worldviews and the frameworks in the world are equal. However, in one way equal and in one way different. The way that is, common in all the culture is that the questions and the elements that make macro questions they are the same. But the way that people answer those questions, or the presuppositions that are taken into consideration or granted, let's say, is different. And in fact, that is the difference between worldviews. The first element is epistemology. So in any culture, we have epistemological ideas. We have epistemological presuppositions, epistemological behaviors and epistemological attitudes. We have also epistemological behaviors that have been epistemologically oriented, let's say. What is epistemology? Beliefs about the nature of truth. What is true? What is false? What is, let's say, wrong? What is, when you are in a culture, as soon as you pose a question, somebody tell that is right or say is false. Why is it so? It's because of the dominant epistemological presuppositions that exist in that culture. So the first question that we can take into consideration is that now is to think about these problems that when we go to Shia culture, because we are going to have a discussion with each other and we decode the ideas. Another thing can be the ontology, beliefs about the ultimate nature of reality. What is reality? One can say reality is quite material. Another one can say a part of it is material, a part of it is spiritual or metaphysical, and even one can say that no, we have no material reality, everything is spiritual or, let's say, metaphysical. About the axiology, it's very important because it talks about the nature of the value and also about the definitions for good and bad. Another, let's say, important question in any culture is that what is good, what is bad? You see something is good in this society, in this culture, you go somewhere else, you do it, and people think that it's not good, it's bad. How is it like that? And when this, let's say, goods and bads, when they are concerned with some important issues, there will be conflict. So in a way, the implication is how to talk about these matters, to have peace, to help peace, in a way to decode the ideas as the when they are the sources of tensions and conflicts. Another one is theology. Theology can be discussed under the topic of ontology. But as far as the cultural studies are concerned, I use it in a different category because of the importance of the topic. Theology is beliefs about the God, the existence of God, the attributes of God. Is another question that later will lead to many different manifestations. Anthropology is another, let's say, presupposition, and anthropological beliefs is about man. What is man? What is the position of man in the society? If you think about it, you say, maybe in some culture they say they have, let's say, a specific position for the man. In another society, maybe they'll say, man is something like other animals in the world, or different things. these anthropological presuppositions and beliefs also affect the culture and introduce a part of, main part of elements for the culture. Cosmology is concentrated on the beliefs about the origin of the universe, let's say, life and also man. What is the position of man in the whole universe? It can be another question. When we talk about this question, maybe in culture now it may be taken for granted for some people, but if you remember, for more than thousands of years, because of the cosmological presuppositions in some cultures, people would think in a specific way that would affect all the behaviors of the societies. Here in Europe, we have a time that people would think that the stars are, some lies that God has put them, and just using hammer. See, this, the implication of such an idea would affect the attitudes of people, their behavior, and of course, their specific rituals and customs. Another one is praxeology. Praxeology shouldn't be confused with the praxeology that is used in economy.
Is this the correct slide?
No.
Classification?
No, still we are in the 9.
Okay. So, this one.
Yeah. Yeah, 9. Of course, yeah, I should talk about that slide after this. Yeah, and praxeology is the theory of action, beliefs, and about something, how one should act, in fact, in the society. What is the plan when somebody is going to act? And what you showed, David, I can say, is something about the macro classification of worldviews. Here we have elements of a worldview. Worldviews based on the sources of information that they receive at the time of establishment, when they are going to be established. They can be categorized in, let's say, five types, 5 classifications. They can be mythical, in fact, as it was in the history. We had mythical worldviews. In mythical, let's say, in mythical worldviews, just people get the information from the sources that are half human and half, let's say, heavenly oriented or divinely oriented, or they have divine origins. And then we come to philosophical worldviews that usually use reason, and the main players in the philosophical worldviews are the philosophers. We have also mystic worldviews, that mystics, the way that they get information in the intuition form is not like what the philosophers do. In the philosophy they use reason, but in the intuition they use, in the mystic worldview they use intuition, in fact. Also, we have, at least in the last 3 or 4 centuries, scientific worldview. Of course, we don't have scientific culture. We may have some, but it's not as deep and as, let's say, developed as the religious cultures, as the mystic cultures, and as it was before, as mythical cultures. maybe later, maybe next 100 years, maybe next 200 years, the scientific culture will be dominant. But now it's a competing worldview as far as the methodology for scientific worldview is introduced for last centuries, at least in a large range. Because when we talk about culture, we don't talk just about the Elias. Maybe we had some scientists 3,000 years ago, but we didn't have a scientific community as big and as large as what we have today. Okay, these are the discussion and description, operational description of culture. You may be familiar with this gentleman. He is Ali Akbar Rashad, and he is a theorist in the field of philosophy of culture at IICT. Okay, this is what I taught, classification of worldviews, number 11. And the 5 worldview that I said, mythical, philosophical, religious, scientific, these can be also classified into other macro worldviews that I call mechanic or organic. So when we come back to the window that I had as an example for worldview, it's important to question, is it mystic that I'm looking through it, or is it scientific, or is it religious? If it's religious or philosophical or whatever, is it mechanical or organic? Because one part of the worldview is to present the relationship between the things in the world. Not only you look at the things, but also you should decode the relationship between things. When you go to the relationship, relationships are also either mechanical, in a mechanic form, or in an organic form. For instance, nowadays, people who talk in favor of environment, in a way they are organic, they have organic ideas. In another way, when there are, some economic policies that just talk about the benefit and just talk about the money, regardless of the environment, just they see the mechanical elements of the society. They see society as a mechanism, let's say. And just they say, this part is good, we do it. If it's not good, we take it out. But in the organic worldviews, every element are in relation with others. When there is a corruption in a part, the whole system will affect. When we come to cultures, of course, there have been some organic cultures for many years. Even when you go to some tribes that are remained out of the civilization, you will see that they are more organic. Okay, now we start decoding the Shi'a elements. So we should start with the worldview. Then we go to the second layer, the cognitive system, and at the third layer we go to the concrete manifestations. At the worldview, we should talk about the elements that are active in every, let's say, axis of the worldview. The first axis is the epistemological elements, or the epistemology, and we talk about its elements, its epistemological elements. These elements may be different from the perspectives of people who are, in fact, members of the dominant culture, the Shia culture that I'm talking about. So when we talk, for instance, about realism and correspondence theory, maybe what an elite in that culture thinks about it be quite different or a little different with another one that is not in fact educated. But when we talk about realism or about the correspondence theory as an element of working or a part of epistemological axis of the dominant Shia worldview, just we talk about how people think about it. Is it in their mind? Do they consider it or not? Because as I discussed now, when you are going to define reality, the truth, you have three ways. Among the three, one has to choose one of them. There is no other way. So in any culture, any people, regardless of the education, regardless of the degree of quantity or quality of his knowledge about the truth, has some tendencies toward one of them. And of course, the pioneers of the culture, the pioneers of the worldview will explain this, will develop these ideas in the society. But the degree of affection will be different among the people. By realism, Shia culture believes truth is something that is existed out of the mind, in fact, and just the adoption of the mind with what is out of the mind can make clear the, let's say, the nature of the reality. However, this element is not like that of realism, which is existed in the philosophy, specifically in Western philosophy. In Western philosophy, it says, okay, we don't have any concrete reality in the mind. Whatever is out of the mind, then is manifested in the mind. So we have adoption of the mind with the reality out of the mind. Is the basis for materialism, in fact. And the theorists that talk about it, they themselves believe that is the basis of the materialism, because they say, okay, is reality and is the basis is matter. What is in Shia culture? In the mind, they say we have a cognitive adaptation and a concrete one. So it will be divided into two parts. It's not just adaptation of abstract things with the concrete ones.
Could you explain that again? What is the difference?
Yeah, the difference is that in Western, at least philosophy, they say realism is something that the adaptation of the let's say abstract reality, what is in mind, the adaptation or the consistency of what is in mind with what is out of the mind. For instance, I say this is a computer. Is it true or false? It's true, because what is in my mind is consistent with what is out of the mind. This is one theory of defining the truth. Another one, which is idealism, is the, let's say, it talks about the inherence of the elements in the mind. So there, the logic and mathematics works for definition of the reality, and is what somebody like Plato talk about. So the difference between idealism and let's say realism is the difference between, in one way, Aristotle and Plato. But Shia realism, as is written by Allame Tabatabai and later developed by Murtaza Mutahhari, it says what is in mind or what is out of the mind as the reality can be classified in two parts, cognitive and concrete reality. They call it واقعیت ذهنی and واقعیت عینی. This is something that differentiates the dominant theory of, let's say, realism in Shia culture with what is in the West. Another one is tendency is wisdom and reason. Well, in any part of the culture you can find, when you talk about something, you should reason for it. And this reason, in fact, comes from the epistemological, let's say, elements that exist in the Shia culture. Because when they talk about realism, they reason for it. They say, okay, we should reason that this is cognitive reality, this is concrete reality, and this is the, let's say, correspondence between what is in mind and what is out of the mind. They use mainly reason to define the reality. And when it comes to other levels, the wisdom and reason plays a major role in the society. If one studies the history of Shia, it can see that they try to reason, and reason and kharat they talk about it is one of the main elements. Another one is revelation and nabuwa. Revelation and nabuwa, or let's say wahy and nabuwa, is another part of the whole epistemology. So the reason, the pure reason, they say that they start with it, but when we go, when we continue, they try to just reason for revelation and for nabuwa. They believe it not as it is, but not without reasoning. Just they believe it using reason. And revelation and nabuwa, that in fact are accepted as the epistemological sources for information, they will bring another discussion. So, that they call infallibility or imamat, or ismat and imamat. These are also important because then when they, in Shia culture, when they are going to say something is right or something is false, they can give you a hadith from the infallible imams. Just when they prove that the hadith is correct, so the reality and the judgment also is correct. Another one is authority. Authority in epistemological discussions refer to the people that are knowledgeable in a field of study. Authority in Shia culture is very important. If you go through a discussion with regards to the, let's say, scientific matters, they say, okay, these people who have the command of this knowledge are expert at this specific domain of study or life, they are qualified enough to answer you. As far as in religious matters, another reference group can be active. So in Shia culture, reference groups play important role. Another one is intuition. Intuition is something that people usually in mystic, let's say, experiences use it, and through intuition they can go and decode their realities, decode the truth.
Siavosh, can I just say something? Okay, we have to make sure that there is time for discussion.
Yes.
And now, you have talked for 45 minutes. We have 1 hour and 15 minutes left. So and there are many slides. So just keep in mind that we should leave at least 45 minutes for discussion, because there is so much to talk about, and it would be a pity if we couldn't discuss it.
Yeah, it cannot be. But when I was coming here, I said to my friend, I present today a methodological approach to study Shi'a studies, to study Shi'a elements that can continue, for many sessions. And in fact, it's not something that just be taken into consideration. I cannot just cite them and say, okay, infallibility, authority, and go. Anyway, I try. But any of these topics later can be discussed in one specific session.
Yes.
However, the basis of discussion, regardless of the time, it should be clearly defined, and at least within that we can talk and conclude and have some rules. Anyway, we have empirical evidence also, we have expediency, and we have mythical tendencies. Just let's look at this. If you look at this, you may question, okay, you talk about worldviews and say based on the sources of information, they can be either mythical or philosophical or scientific. So when you look at the Shia, you will see the traces of scientific worldview, you will see the traces of mystic worldview, you will see the traces of, and even when you go more through the elements that later we'll find, you will see mechanical and organic issues as well. I believe Shia culture, of course, at the level of the theorists, they have a discussion that they have a comprehensive source of information in this religion. And because of this sort of tendency to knowledge, so there are many, capacities, mystic capacities, scientific capacity, philosophical capacities for this. And when they come to the policy and political system, they use it as an engine for, acting. Because in political system, you need to be flexible, and you need the different sources of information. The difference between Shia, I believe, and other branches in some, religious branches in the world, is that Shia culture has the most capability to govern, to establish government, to establish a state, as far as the epistemological elements of such a culture is concerned. I cannot discuss more because I'm going to go to another one as well. Okay, here the ontological, how the reality is defined. Just I scan, and from now on I give you the main ideas. The reality is both material and divine. So we have material tendencies and divine tendencies. But on the whole, monotheistic beliefs or Tawhid